Today we're going to be covering Pauri number 16. And as we've seen with the previous verses, we had a series of 4 verses in suniye and 4 verses in manne. And in the same way, the next 4 verses are also linked together. So we've had 4 already suniye, 4 already manne, and now the next 4 verses are also linked together. And they all end with the same line. We know that they're linked because they end with the same line. Jo tud paavahi, sai palikar, tu sada salamat nirankar. So if we refresh our memory, what we've covered so far, the Suniye Pauri was all about people who had gone into a deep state of listening, a state of awareness within themselves, and talked about those people that had really taken on the message of the Guru. The next 4 verses were all about the people who had listened and followed that instruction, that had accepted the Guru's wisdom as the ultimate wisdom. And that starts by saying, Manne ki gat kahi na jaye. We cannot even begin to describe what level these people are at, who have fully accepted and known that truth of the Guru within themselves. The last verse of the Manne Shabads begin with the line, Manne pave mokh duar. So it describes that these people have found liberation. So the next 4 pauris, or certainly the next pauri coming up after this, we can confer. The next 4 pauris, we can infer that it is also talking about these people who have gone through that process of suniye, gone through that process of manne, and now what we're discussing is those people who are manne pave mokh duar, who have found that liberation. The ones who have mastered suniye and mastered the experience of manne. And the Shabad begins, Panch Parvaan Panch Pardhaan. The word Panch is a plural word. We know that because it doesn't have an onkar at the end. So it's a plural word. And so in this context, it's referring to those people who have done that suniye, who've done that manne. They're now given the title of Panch. And Panch is a saintly person, a sadhu person, a sage, a holy person, a Panch. And it is the ones who have listened, the ones who have accepted, who have understood, and who are now living this as their lifestyle. This is who they are. They have now transcended themselves. They've gone beyond themselves. They're the ones who are always connected with that ik. Remember that whatever we talk about always has to go back to the ik onkar. They've elevated themselves from their individual identity to this universal identity. When we talk about the analogy of the torch, and the torch that's shining all around, looking at different things, this is the torch that is aware of its own light. Not focusing on what it's shining on, not constantly interested in things outside of it, but aware of its own light, its own brilliance. So this is the torch that knows that it is light. And it knows that the light is not something individual to it. It is part of this bigger light. Sab mein jyot, jyot hai soe, tis te chanan, sab mein chanan hoye. It understands that it is alive because there is this greater aliveness of the universe. Its aliveness isn't individual, it is Paramatma. So these are the people that we're talking about. Panch Parvaan. So we can call these people the conscious ones, the awakened ones. Parvaan means they're approved. Panch Parvaan Panch Pardhaan. Pardhaan means they are masters, they are leaders, they are authorities. So we can say that these awakened ones are approved and they are the authorities. They are approved because the purpose of their life has been achieved. The reason they were born, they've realized that. And they are authorities because we look to them as a guide for mankind. We look to them as a shining example of how to live. They hold the highest position amongst mankind. They are authorities because they've mastered themselves and they've mastered their minds. So these are the state of the people that we're talking about. Panch Parvaan Panch Pardhaan. Panchay paavahi dargahi maan. So these awakened conscious beings obtain dargahi maan. Maan means honor, respect. Where do they obtain respect? In the dargah, in the divine royal court. So they're not now amongst the ordinary. They are experiencing a different experience of life. They're not sitting amongst you and me. They're sitting in the court of the divine. They are present in the presence of the One. They're there sitting with it. They're the invited special guests sitting in the darbar of the One. While alive, while talking, while eating, while sleeping, they're not here. They are in the presence of the oneness. So their whole conversation, their whole way of working with people, dealing with people, is as though they're dealing with that oneness. And this idea about darge pave maan, we've covered and we've seen similar things being stated by Guru Nanak Dev Ji before, that this honor isn't from people, this honor is from the divine honor. In Pauri 5, we heard about Jin Sevya Tin Paya Maan. The ones who are constantly serving this way of living, they obtain honor. We talked about Manne Patsyon Pargat Jai. With honor, they are exalted. This is how they leave the world. This is how they've completed their journey. Pauri number 14, we covered that. And this analogy of sitting in a royal court is continued in the next line. Panche sohe dar raajaan. So these conscious awakened people are sohe, sone lagde, they are beautiful. In the dar, again, in the court, in the darbar of raajaan. Now, when you look at your translations, a lot of translations will say they are beautiful amongst all the kings, they are the most beautiful. But one thing to note in the spelling of raajaan, there's an onkar underneath it, which means the word raajaan is singular, one king. So they're not sitting in the court of ordinary kings. They are beautiful in the presence of the royal king, the ultimate king, the king of kings. So we must be careful when we look at the spelling. Panche sohe dar raajaan. In the royal presence of that one king of kings. And we hear shabads like this, Rajan Raj Panan Pan Devan Dev Upma Mahan. The king of kings. That's what we're talking about here. Rajan ke Raja, Maharajan ke Maharaja. Aisa Raj chhod duja kaun tyai re. This is the King of Kings, the greatest kings of the greatest kings. If we were to abandon this king, where else would we go? So these people are sitting in the presence of this divine king. And they are radiant, they're glowing. There's another way to translate this line as well, and this is where Gurbani becomes quite interesting. The same spelling can have multiple meanings. You can also translate this line to be that they are beautiful like a king sitting in his court. That these, which people may look completely ordinary to you and me on the outside, because they're not having an ordinary experience, they are having a completely extraordinary life experience. They carry themselves with this grace, with this beauty, almost as though they are their own king sitting in their royal darbar. And that translation also works with this spelling. They are beautiful like a king sitting in their darbar. Constantly observing the world, looking upon the world, observing their own mind, observing all their thoughts, but never attached to them, completely detached. See, a king has so much wealth that more money coming in, people coming, bowing to him, offering him, making offerings, he's almost detached from it all. His wealth is so much that he doesn't even know what to do with it. So he's almost become detached from his wealth. Wealth now no longer has the same meaning as it does for somebody working hard and earning for every last penny. And in the same way, the Panch, the completely egoless, completely detached from the world, they treat all of life, all the wealth of life with this detachment. Because it's no longer theirs, it's no longer something for them to attach onto. And this is what gives them their radiance, their glow. It's very hard to say whether Guru Nanak Dev Ji has limited it to one meaning, or whether actually the very fact that this is poetic language means that actually Guru Nanak Dev Ji is speaking on multiple levels. So in one level it could be meaning this, but actually it could be meaning something completely different. So this is something that we find is that even when you read hukamnamas, where you are defines how you take that hukamnama. And the same hukamnama you can read some months later, a year later, and it will have a different meaning. So there's something beautiful about this philosophy, that it almost has this ability to speak to different people at different levels. To the most simple, basic understanding, it makes sense. And to people who like to really go into the depth of it, it also makes sense at different levels. So there's one way of translating this whole thing, which is what we've just covered around Panch being the people. But interestingly, and something that's almost never covered in any of the standard translations, is that Panch has a completely different meaning as well, and doesn't actually refer to the holy people, the saintly people. And so I'd like to go through that as well. These lines that we've just covered actually have a completely different meaning if you just change the meaning of the word Panch. So the word Panch in Gurbani has also been used to represent the number 5. And the 5 has multiple meanings. Just one word Panch with exactly the same spelling has been used to represent the 5 thieves. We talk about Panch Chor. So we talk about Panch here, but it's interchangeable with the word Panch in certain places in Gurbani. Panch Chor, 5 thieves. Panch Indriya, 5 senses. 5 virtues. There are also 5 good qualities that a person must try and obtain in their life. 5 elements. The body is made up of 5 elements. And Panch Shabad as well, 5 celestial sounds. And some people translate Panch Shabad to be 5 different types of instruments. Different ways of creating music has been broken down in Indian music as 5 different types, 5 different categories of music. So the word Panch in Gurbani has been used to represent several different things. So we need to look at the whole Shabad to try and work out what we think the meaning is. There's a really beautiful Shabad by Guru Arjan Dev Ji that really highlights this point. In Rag Asa, Guru Arjan Dev Ji, 5th Guru, has this Shabad that says, Panch manaye, Panch rusaye, Panch vasaye, Panch gavaye. And here Guruji is using the word 5, and each time he uses the word 5, he means something else. So Guruji here is saying, Panch manaye, I have gone and reconciled with the 5 good virtues. And we'll go on to what those 5 virtues are. I've reconciled, I've made friends with those 5 good virtues, and I've angered the 5 bad virtues. They've become displeased with me. Panch manaye, Panch rusaye. Rus gaye. Yeah, they're displeased with me. They're saddened and angry with me. Because I've become friends with the 5 good virtues, the 5 bad virtues are against me now. Panch vasaye. And I've put those 5, they've settled now within me, and I've abandoned other 5. Yeah? So Guruji is using the word panch here, but you have to understand that there's so many different meanings here. Inhe bid nagar vutha mere bhai. This is what has happened in my town, in my sarir, in my body. These things have now come and inhabited my body, like I'm a village. And these 5 have now come to live in this village. Durt gaya gur gyan dridaya. Durt gaya gur gyan dridai. That evil has now gone and the Guru's wisdom has now come in. So Guruji has used this example here and very poetically just used the number 5. 5 have I've befriended, 5 I've disappointed. 5 have come within me and I've lost 5. That's all he's saying. We have to understand what this 5 is talking about. Now using this example, let's look at this Panch Parvaan again. If we take Panch to mean the number 5, we can have a completely different meaning of this Shabad, Panch Parvaan Panch Pardhaan. We can say Panch Parvaan, 5 are approved. 5 elements are approved. To start the human body, you need 5 elements. This is earth, fire, wind, water, and space. 5 different elements needed to create the human body. The human body is said is to be made up of these 5 elements. These have become approved, and Panch Pardhaan, 5 have become manifest. They've become the leaders. Which 5? The 5 senses. So 5 elements have been approved to create a body of 5 senses, Panch Pardhaan. Panchay, paavahi, dargahi, maan. But everybody has the 5 elements. Everybody has the 5 senses. That doesn't give you honor. Just being alive doesn't give you honor. How do you find dargahi maan? When you've used your 5 elements and your 5 senses and you've brought in 5 virtues into your life. The 5 virtues in your life are Sat, Santokh, Daya, Dharam, and Dheeraj. Truthful living, contentment, compassion, righteous, dharmic living, that divine living, and patience. Some people disagree what these 5 qualities are. Some people say courage, nimrata, prem. All of these are interchangeable to say that actually when you bring these 5 good qualities within you, then you've elevated yourself. Then you're no longer a body just of 5 senses and 5 elements. You're 5 good qualities you've brought within you. Then, if you bring those 5 in, then you get panche pave darge maan. Then you get honor, because you've gone from an ordinary person into a very virtuous person. Panche sohe dar raajaan. There's one thing to obtain honor. There's another to be called into the presence of the divine. When you have these 5 qualities within you, then these lead to the Panch Shabad. Panch Shabad is another word for your Dasam Dwar opening. Yeah? We hear it in Anand Sahib, Panch Shabad Itkar Sapage. Yeah? That means that you've had your 5 elements, you've now elevated your life, and you live such a virtuous life that your Dasam Dwar opens. Then you are in the presence of the divine. Your consciousness is completely opened. Now you're in the presence of the divine. Panch Parvaan Panch maan, panchay sohahi dar raajaan. So we can take the same Shabad and have a completely different meaning. Either way, you can end with the line that says Pancha ka gur ek Dhi-aan. In order to have all of these things, you need to have the guidance of the Guru and Dhi-aan on the oneness. Pancha ka gur ek Dhi-aan. Meditation on the oneness is their Guru. The people who have obtained the 5 qualities, that translation works. And the first translation, we talked about the Panch, those who are highly elevated through mankind. They still need a Guru and they still need meditation on the one. Pancha ka gur ek Dhi-aan. So we can see how interesting Gurbani gets when you just look at one Shabad in a different way. And actually, this idea of 5 permeates a lot of different elements of even our everyday Sikhi. We have Panch Pyare. What are the Panch Pyare? Again, the 5 good qualities come in. By Daya Singh Ji, compassion. By Dharam Singh Ji, righteous living. By Himmat Singh Ji, strength. By Mokam Singh Ji, determination. By Sahib Singh Ji, mastery, leadership. We have Panch Kakar. Guruji gave us Panch Kakar. Guruji gave us in our morning Nitnem Baniya, Panch Baniya. So you can see that actually this idea of 5 actually speaks to us on so many different levels. If you've ever wondered why 5, why Panch Kakar, why Panch Pyare, why Panch Baniya? Maybe there's a link because we have a body made of 5 senses, we have 5 elements, we have 5 good qualities that we have to take on, we have 5 bad qualities that we have to get rid of. And when we do all of that, we can experience an experience that is called the experience of the 5 sounds, Panch Shabad, which is this idea of this Dasam Dwar. So we can see actually this Panch really permeates so many different levels. So the Panch Baniya, the Panch Kakar, the Panch Pyare, this idea of 5 that we live with could be related to all of the different levels of 5 that we've talked about so far. Then Guruji says, because this is so deep a concept, jee-ko kahai karai veechaar, kartay ke karnai naahee sumaar. If one tries to have a conversation about this, if one tries to think too deeply about this, if one tries to discuss this, what it's like to be in this state, what is the experience of that person who is in that Panch state? Kartay ke karnai naahee sumaar. Why is it kartay ke karnai? Why not Panch ke karnai? Why are we now talking about the Karta Purkh and not these individuals? Because these individuals are no longer individuals. They're merged. They're lost their individuality. They're back in the ocean. There's now no difference between them and the oneness itself. We talk about Brahmgyani aap Parmeshwar. These people are the same as Parmeshwar. Har jan aisa chahiye jaisa har hi hoye. So these people are one with the oneness. They're no longer themselves. So when you're describing them, you're describing the oneness. Jeko kahe kare veechaar, kartay ke karnai, naahee sumaar. When you describe them, you realize that you're not describing them, you're actually describing the whole of creation. And then you realize that their description cannot be done. Because the actions of the oneness, kartay ke karnai, the actions of the creative being, naahee sumaar. Sumar means limit, or like to do an account, to try and quantify, cannot be done. Kartay ke karnai, naahee sumaar, cannot be done. There is no end to the limit of this description. The workings of the doer never come to an end. You cannot describe it. So these panch are no longer there. They are living, breathing, walking, talking versions of that oneness. They are the divine manifest on earth. They themselves cannot describe their experience. Even they can't explain it. Even they can't put it to words. They're just at one with the universe. They understand the universe, but they cannot speak about it. So Guruji here is now making this point very clear, and he's done that again and again and again, saying this description cannot be described. And time again in Japji Sahib, we've heard this analogy that if anyone tries to describe it, they will realize that they are losing this battle. Manne ki gat kahi na jaye, je ko kahe piche pachtaye. Kagat kalam na likhan haar. You can't write it down on paper. Anybody who sits down, manne kaabe karan veechaar. You just have to know what this experience is. You just have to know aisa naam niranjan hoy. You just have to know what this experience is. You can't read about it in any books. The Guru is a guide. The Guru is all the wisdom you need to transform yourself. But the transformation has to happen within you. You have to become this. You cannot read about it anywhere, and that includes Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Guru Granth Sahib Ji, if it remains an external textbook for you, then it will never give you that wisdom. This wisdom is something where you practice Guru Granth Sahib Ji, where you live it, where you're breathing it, where you're talking about it, where you're eating it, where you're sleeping it. Uthat baitat sovat jagat. At every moment you have to live this. Then the Guru goes from being an external text to an internal wisdom. This is antar-gyan. Yeah? So we have to understand that we must become this. We talked about before becoming the highest version of yourself, the highest being that you can be. If you can imagine for a moment, what are you like in your highest state, in your highest self, just within yourself? What is the best version of me? What is the most elevated, what is me going to be like as the enlightened me? Be that person, because that person is in you right now. And it doesn't require you to do anything special. You just have to become the highest form of what you are. And the highest form of what you are is already there. You almost don't have to become that person, you just have to be that person. You are already holding that divine version of yourself within you. There is no barrier. When we talked about, right at the beginning in the Mool Mantra, when we talked about Saepang, self-sustaining, needing nothing external, this is what we mean. You can be this. So Guruji is saying that this is something that you have to experience within yourself. It cannot be described. But Guruji was also talking to people who were trying to describe the universe. And if you go through the history of the ancient Vedic texts, Purans and all of these old Granths, there they've tried to put detailed descriptions to try and understand the universe, to try and explain this is what the universe is like. They went away to meditate on themselves. They came back with attempts to try and describe what the universe is like. And Guruji here now shows some of the theories that they've come up with. One of the theories is about the actual workings of the universe. What is the earth? What is it made up of? Where is this earth? We can see the sun, we can see the moon, but what's holding all these things up? One of the concepts that is prevalent at the time is this idea that the earth is being supported by a bull. There's a bull that is holding the entire planet on one of his horns. And when he gets tired, he transfers that planet from one horn to the other horn. And when you see that transfer from one horn to the other, that's where earthquakes come from. That's why the earth sometimes moves. That's why it's rattling, because the horn's getting tired. The bull is transferring. So they're trying to find a way to describe the earth, describe the workings of the universe. So Guruji uses this analogy. And rather than criticizing the analogy, Guruji just raises questions about it. Say, okay, let me ask you some questions. Let me get some clarity on this concept. So we started talking about the people who are connected to the universe, but Guruji says that these people, even they themselves can't describe it. Who are you trying to describe the universe? Why are you trying to describe the universe when the most enlightened beings are not able to describe the universe? So he's now challenging these common beliefs about what is the universe made of. Guruji goes on to say, Dhoul Dharam daree-aa poot. So this idea of this mythical bull is Dhoul. Yeah, this bull. Guruji says, yes, there is a bull holding up the earth, but it's not the type of bull that you're thinking up. The natural way of the universe, Dharam, is what is holding the universe up. This natural law, we can call it hukam. That which is, the way things are, that is what is keeping the universe going. So Guruji says that if you believe in a bull, make Dharam the bull that is holding the universe, as in the will of the one, that divine will that just makes things happen all the time. That Dharam is what's holding the earth up. And that Dharam has come from somewhere. That natural system has come out of something. It isn't just, now let's look at the West. Scientific theory is that the universe is random. Scientists believe that the universe is completely random and is just happening unconscious. The whole universe is unconscious. It's just happening. There's no great being, there's no scientific proof of any oneness or any divine being. So it's just dull, almost like the universe is dead. And it's just a random series of events happening. Some meteors are colliding with others, they become a planet. Some star is destroyed, it explodes, that creates some more planets. The East has always said, yes, all of these things are happening, but there's something alive. And the whole universe is alive. It's not dead. It's quite a different concept to what the Christians and the Abrahamic traditions believe, which is about there is a God and he is an architect. Like there's somebody actually choosing, I'm going to make an earth and I'm going to put some people in there and I'm going to make Mars and I'm going to make another solar system here and I'm going to paint this one red and this one blue. Like somebody's actually sitting there making all these decisions. That's not the Eastern system. The Eastern idea is that the universe is in tandem with science. Science and Dharam are not at odds with each other. Science and the Abrahamic religions are completely at odds with each other. The Abrahamic traditions will tell you the world is only 6,000 years old. You show them a fossil that's several millions years old of a dinosaur, they say, God put it there to test my faith. So they're battling with their textbooks that are talking about the earth being 6,000 years old and scientific theory and experiments that are proving actually we can carbon date these trees are like 20,000 years old. How can the earth be 6,000 years old? So they're at complete odds with each other. They don't know how to reconcile the two. The Eastern traditions have said, of course, everything is scientific. It makes sense. Everything has a law. There's speed of gravity, speed of light, speed of sound. It all makes sense. But it's all alive. That's all we're saying. It's alive. It's not dead. It's conscious. Just as conscious as you are, where did your consciousness come from? If the universe is unconscious, where did your consciousness come from? That's the Eastern idea. And this consciousness is not just dead. It's like a loving consciousness. There's an emotion behind it. Love is the power that is pervading throughout the universe. It's a loving feeling. It's not a hatred feeling. It's not an angry feeling. It's just sacha Sahib sach naahee, paao apar. There is this one true master. It's permanent. His system is permanent. The system of dharam, of natural law, is permanent. But it's in a loving way. There's a love. And the whole point of that is we can connect with that love. Love is an emotion that we have access to. So this dharam also comes from this loving daya. It comes out of daya. The whole universe is speaking and creating out of compassion. So, Dhoul Dharam daya ka poot. So the natural order of the system, which we call dharam, has a mother, which is compassion. Dharam daya ka poot. Santokh thap rakhi-aa jin soot. Dhoul Dharam daya ka poot. Santokh thap rakhi-aa jin soot. But as well as a mother, there's also a father. As well as compassion, there is also contentment, santokh. Santokh is contentment. Thap rakhi-aa means this is what binds the whole universe together. Thap rakhi-aa. This jin soot. Soot is from the word sutar, which is the system, the rules, the maryada. This is like a thread that is completely interwoven into the fabric of the universe. So dharam is the blanket of the universe, and it is sewn with two threads, with compassion and contentment. Now that sounds great, but what does it mean for us? Yeah? It always has to make sense to us. Otherwise, we're talking about the whole universe being loving and all that. So, okay, fine. What do I do with that? If this is the description Guru Nanak Dev Ji is giving of the universe, then part of that universe means it's a description of you. At the very root of you is compassion. At the very root of you is contentment. And we've covered these concepts before. When we talked about the mind and the stages of the mind, manne surt hove man buddh, we had a deep conversation around the layers of the mind: intelligence, memories, awareness, self-identity. We talked about these layers of the mind. And we talked about issues. Suffering also exists in the mind. Suffering isn't at the core of who you are. At the core of who you are is contentment. Hatred is also not inside you. Hatred is in the mind. At the very root of who you are is compassion, friendliness, lovingness. And we can see this in babies. Babies whose minds haven't been developed, they are just content. yes, they need to be fed. Yes, they need milk. Yes, they need food. Yes, they need to be changed. Yes, they need sleep. They can get very cranky at times. But at times when they have all those needs fulfilled, you'll notice they're ecstatic. They're just looking around and they're so happy. The smallest things makes them completely just elated, delighted. And how much hatred does a baby have? It doesn't know how to hate because it doesn't have a mind to hate. It doesn't know how to hate because it doesn't have a past yet. You can only hate something that's happened to you in the past. They don't have a past. They're in the present moment. They don't have any fears either because they don't live in the future. They live in the present moment. And this is the core of what you are. Everything else that you think you are has come later on. And this is when you start building this nice little fortress around you. My name, my identity, my family, my likes, my dislikes. And very soon, before you know it, identity, ego has been created. And that superficial layer is where all these things exist. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying, at the root of who you are is daya and santok, compassion and contentment. And just as your body has certain things that it needs food, it needs shelter, it needs sustenance. In the same way, your physical body has needs. In the same way, your spiritual body, which we talk about suksham sarir, your subtle body, your deeper subconscious, your atma, whatever you want to call it, that also has sustenance that it needs. And that sustenance is these 5 good qualities. Dharam is what it needs. This is what you were born to do. You were born to realize this dharam, this natural way of the world. But you can't have dharam without daya. There is no religious way of living that doesn't have compassion. Compassion is religion. Compassion is spirituality. And contentment is religion. If you are religious without compassion, then you are not religious. You might look religious on the outside, but within the inside there is no religion inside you. There is no dharam inside you. There is no spirituality inside you. So you have these 2 things inside you, yeah? You have daya, compassion, and santok, contentment. How do these manifest? How does compassion manifest? If you are compassionate towards others, everything you do becomes a seva, service for others. So your inner compassion is manifest outside as seva. Living in a way that your whole life is seva. That is how you manifest your compassion, your daya. And how do you manifest your tranquility, your contentment? One is external, which is seva to the outside world. How do you do seva within yourself? That santok within yourself is manifest as simran. Seva for the outside world, simran for the inside world. Compassion, contentment. And this is why people say the pillars of Sikhi are seva and simran, because the very root of who you are is also seva and simran, daya, santok. Seva and simran is dharam. That is how you live a religious dharmic life. Service for others and meditation within yourself. Service for yourself. And you notice in the Gurdwara we also have this system. You get 2 things from the Gurdwara. You get Pangat and you get Sangat. Pangat is your opportunity to serve. Sangat is your opportunity to meditate. So even in the Gurdwara, it's made up of these two things. Seva, Simran, Sangat, Pangat. And the Panch that we were talking about, this is where they are. This is the place where they are, where they're just merged in Seva and Simran, in Dhi-aan, in Santokh all the time. This is their way of life. They are constantly serving, all the while being content within themselves. Contentment internally and compassion externally. See these as two wings that you need to fly. To elevate yourself to Dharam, you need two wings. Internal, tranquility. External, seva, humility. So this is how you are, and this is the root of the whole universe. Dhoul Dharam, daya ka poot, santokh thap rakhi-aa jin soot. This is the stability, this is what holds the universe up. Not a mythical bull. And one who understands this will obtain that ultimate truth, that ultimate, stable, permanent truth. Je ko bujhe, hove satyar. If you understand this, you will get that ultimate truth. See, Guru Nanak Dev Ji is really simplifying the whole of the mystery of Dharam down to these simple things. If one understands this, je ko bujhe, bujna means to understand, hove satyar. They will get that truth that they're looking for. That you need Dharam in your life. Dharam is made up of Dhi-aan and Santokh. Now, this satyar that we're talking about, Sach, we're not talking about honest living here. We're not talking about a life that's just devoid of lies and cheating. That's not such. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about knowing the truth and living by that truth. Understanding the permanent nature of the universe and living by it. Changing your way of living and connecting your identity with that identity. Remember, in the very first Pauri, Guruji helped us by posing this question, how do we come Satyar? How do we get this? Give Satyara hoye. We learned right at the beginning. Give kude tutte pal, hukam razai chalana. So hukam, living in the natural system, the way everything is, be in that. Now Guruji is explaining, this is what these things are. Yeah? Hukam, this is Dharam, this is the way it is. So if this is the system, let us address this idea of this bull. Let's really nail this idea down, Guruji is saying. Tavle upar keta par. Let's just analyze this idea for a moment. Let's say for a moment that the earth is held by a bull. The earth that we're walking on is being held up by a bull. Guruji asks this question, how can this one bull hold this entire weight of the whole planet? Tavle upar keta par. See, Guru Nanak Dev Ji isn't insulting these people. Guru Nanak Dev Ji could actually go into a lot more detail about how the universe works because Guruji is connected to the whole thing. And Guruji has also said that it's possible to do this, to describe the whole universe, to explain, to understand the whole universe. Guruji has already told us this is possible. Let's look at some of the verses we've covered so far. Suniye tarat taval akas. Taval, tol, comes up there. By going into that listening, you will understand the world, the mythical bull you'll understand, and the sky, you'll understand it. Suniye deep lo patal. You'll understand the worlds, the higher worlds and the lower worlds. You'll understand all of it. Manne sagal pavan ki sudh. The people who have understood and accepted, they have the true understanding of all of the worlds. Manne sagal pavan ki sudh. So Guruji's already said people at this level are able to understand the universe. But the ones who are trying to describe the universe, he's not going into that. He's simply just throwing their theory back at them and saying, well, it's this rational, logical thinking, critical thinking. Guruji is using rational argument and saying, okay, let's think about this idea. Tavle upar kita par. How much weight can this one bull carry? How can a bull carry the whole earth? Tarti hor pare hor hor. Now Guruji's really challenging them. Okay, there's a bull who's carrying the whole earth. What's he standing on? Tarti hor. There must be another ground that bull is standing on. And then if he's standing on a ground, who is supporting that ground? Guruji is really throwing this question back at them. And they might actually come back and say, yes, the bull is supported by a ground, but the ground that he's standing on is supported by another bull. Guruji will say, Tarti hor, pare hor hor. And then that second bull must be standing on a ground. Who is supporting that one? If it's another bull, then he is standing on something. Do you see? It becomes an infinite loop. Guruji is saying, Tarti hor, there must be at least one more ground, and beyond it, there must be another one and another one. The word hor here is singular, it's not plural, it's got an onkar. So he's saying there's at least one more. Tarti hor, and beyond it, there's another one, and then another one. Tarti hor, pare, beyond, hor hor, another and another. Tiste par tale kavan jor. And if you keep going with this argument, what about the very last bull? Who's holding that one up? Tiste par tale, underneath that weight, kavan jor. What is the force that's holding that one up? If they concede that actually ultimately Paramatma is holding up the whole thing, that this divine oneness is holding the whole thing, Guru Nanak is saying, yes, you're right, but he isn't holding just that last bull, he's holding everything. That divine oneness is holding the whole universe up, it doesn't need a bull. Tarti hor, pare hor, hor, tiste par tale kavan jor. So Guruji is really getting people to start to think that if you understand that ultimately there has to be something greater than just some mythical bull, there has to be this greater force. And what about our planet is being held by a bull? What about other planets? What about all the stars and the suns and the moons? Who's holding all of them up? Yeah. And if you understand that actually the power of the universe is holding them up, then you have to understand that that's what's holding everything up.